I want to show you something that will give you a serious leg up on every investor who only updates their investment ideas when a company posts their earnings. And if you're that type of investor, I think you're going to get a lot of value from this episode. Google Trends is a free service provided by Google itself, and we're going to learn how to use it to predict earnings and important trends instead of reacting to them. ARK Invest does this pretty often in their research. Take a look at ARKF, ARK Invest's FinTech Innovation Fund. See how Square is Cathie Wood's biggest position here, and it's over 10% of the fund by weight, while PayPal is in 7th? That's actually because of a few things that they spotted in Google Trends, like where the search interest for Square's Cash App was growing the fastest, and the rising search interest for Cash App relative to the interest in PayPal's Venmo. Why is Cathie Wood so confident that there's more to Bitcoin's price than just hype? Because Google Trends shows Bitcoin's relative search interest staying the same while its price continued to climb. These are real investing insights that are moving billions of dollars. So, to help us learn how to use Google Trends effectively, I'm bringing in someone from the ticker symbol U community who specializes in finding these types of insights. My good friend Nolan is going to teach us where and when Google Trends is useful, how to see if a company's expansion into new markets is going well, like C's expansion of Shopee into Brazil, and how to craft the right searches to compare competitors like Cash App and Venmo. After the episode, you can learn more about Google Trends by checking out his Twitter at Nolan Antonucci, where he often posts detailed follow-ups to my deep dives on ARK Invest stock picks, showing these same types of investing insights. Let's dive right into it. So walk us through your history with Google Trends and how you use this tool as an investor.
Yeah, so this is a tool that, we'll get to in a little bit, but ARK Invest has used it to kind of vet some of their trades, but I've kind of stumbled into it on my own too, just based off of kind of right place, right time. So I work at an e-commerce agency and I've been there for 7.5 years. And I primarily focus on Google Shopping and Amazon advertising. So my brain's been trained on the search volume over time for the word furniture or back to school. Those all can be layered out into Google Trends, and there's interesting ways you can use that for stock investing as well. But again, I was hired in 2014, and I could see a lot of our clients transitioning. They're on both sides of the consumer divide there between Shopify and Magento. So Magento being an e-commerce platform, so these direct-to-consumer e-commerce platforms, they were the lead when I was hired. So I was hired around February 2013 or so. Magento was getting more search volume than Shopify, but we could see some of our clients deciding to go to new platforms. You go to a more specific term like Shopify pricing or Magento pricing, those are people that they're vetting how expensive this is going to cost. Are they going to take a 2% fee or 3% fee? Are they going to charge a monthly fee on top of that? So we can kind of see here maybe around this flippening, I guess, comes in with Magento versus Shopify pricing back here a little earlier. So sometimes if you go more narrow on the more specific term, yes, you're going to get kind of a more jagged, a less search volume to be going off of, but it still can be very telling of a really important subset. And you can maybe layer that subset in to say, hey, for every 100 searches of the word Shopify in general, how many has the word Shopify pricing? Those are probably pretty correlated over time. So if you measure the really specific one, you can kind of extrapolate a bit, but you also want to kind of dive pretty deep there. You might want to check with a number of terms like the word login. But again, then seeing some of the white papers that Max Friedrich and the team at ARK has put together, they're using this stuff too, to close the gap on, you see an earnings report once every 3 months. There's a lot of kind of darkness between those data points. Is there a way that I can get the hidden scoreboard, a read on what's going on in between, Google Trends being one of many?
Yeah, so it sounds like you're really using this as a measure of adoption, right? Widespread adoption. So this sounds like it's really good for things like e-commerce, fintech, cryptocurrency, and understanding, how many people are adopting a specific online service, right? I'm sure this also works for companies like Netflix. And it sounds like, that S-curve adoption, you can take that as broad with just these head terms, like you mentioned, Magento and Shopify, or as deep as you want to understand how businesses are adopting it instead of just basic search terms. Can you walk us through some of the types of things you add or subtract from these terms when you compare them to say, hey, businesses are moving from Magento to Shopify?
Like for Palantir is a good example of, I don't know how many customers they have, but it's in more of the hundreds rather than the thousands or tens of thousands or millions. And again, people aren't going to search Palantir pricing, but you can maybe find some kind of secular terms that could apply to. But the reality is it's less of this applies probably less in those cases. People that search Palantir, a lot of those actually are Palantir stock. There are operators you can put in there, and Alex, you kind of helped me out a few months ago about you can actually put a plus sign in between there, and it adds two terms together. So you could add Cash App as one word, plus Cash App is 2 words, and kind of use the combined operators to combine things there. So there's it becomes the element of like, again, if you're relying on a stage 2 clinical trial to be a breakthrough as to why your company's stock's going to skyrocket, probably Google Trends is not going to be able to measure the likelihood of that trial passing, or or likelihood of cannabis being something that's legalized, or our government's realizing that autonomous driving maybe is safer than humans driving. So if you're waiting for those kind of breakthroughs, those are a little trickier. I think there are some cool ones for Tesla. Maybe we can get to at some point in the future, but there are ways in which, if you're careful about the terms you're picking and what part of the thesis you want to measure, I think there's a ways you can, if you're crafty about it, you can find them.
So I recently did a video on C Limited, ticker symbol SE, which has 3 main components to it. And I know that C is a big holding that you really care about. Can you walk us through your end-to-end thesis on C, showing us in Google Trends data how you identified it as a winner so early?
Head term here is Shopee in red, looking really good. The core elements of the 2 core competitors in this region here, and this is, again, more background, this is just Indonesia. You can see Tokopedia versus Lazada have been kind of on a trend downward. So it is important to understand, look at this one here. If the competitor is going faster, that's not a good thing. But in this case, competitors are going the wrong direction. It's having that flippening moment again, that Magento versus Shopify that I first spotted back then, that this is data that not everyone's acting on. So that ends up being an element here, probably a whole other side about how much is Wall Street digesting this. I think they're beginning to, but there's so many other ways of people that are trading on technicals, looking at candlesticks, that there's still enough here for me to feel like I have an edge by looking at this and putting the context of this, because here's Shopee in red going up, Shopee Pay, which looks to be really small, but if I removed all these other ones as a percentage, there's an exponential S-curve adoption that's going on right there, and it's still going up kind of linearly now still.
So the key identifier here is being able to say, here are Shopee's big competitors in each region, remembering that C Limited focuses a lot on localization. So in this case, it's Lazada and some of the other competitors you showed us, and understanding that the adoption is happening with users searching that term more and more over time relative to those same Lazada search terms, right? And you were able to show much earlier than we could see in earnings that Shopee became the dominant e-commerce platform way before we could see it in earnings. And that's what led to your confidence there, right? Is that like a fair assessment?
Exactly. I mean, it's a good summary here. And now I've kind of backed it out to the worldwide view where that crossover happens a little later. So if you're not, so just like I had on the pricing element, by looking at Shopify pricing versus Magento pricing, I could find that a little bit earlier than the word Shopify and the word Magento. If I looked at Shopee and Lazada in Indonesia, I can see that crossover happen sooner. Keep an eye on these gauges too. So really every stock that I'm invested in, as I try to create some kind of a dashboard that gives me some underlying measure of that hidden scoreboard. So as opposed to seeing the score at the beginning and ending of quarters, I want to know what the score is during the middle there. I want to know if there's leading indicators that give me, is my team winning or not?
That's right. No, that's great. So you're able to even narrow it down to a specific region to see how things like C's expansion into Brazil is going, right? Is that what we're seeing here in this data? How well they're doing being expanding into Brazil versus some of their competitors in that specific country?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is Shopee, and we have to consider language barriers too, but the word Shopee in Portuguese is being searched the same. So, but I would probably want to figure out if they put the word diamond in Portuguese.
I noticed that you have a lot of ellipses in some of these search terms. Can you walk us through a little bit how you structure some of them? For example, Cash App plus safe minus certain things, or like just be, hey, explicitly, here's what I'm typing into each search term to compare apples to apples.
Yeah. So what's going on here is to try to make this, I mean, there are some people that searches like, I'm looking for an app for cash, and it's not necessarily Cash App. So having them one after the other was important. So this is, again, from the search marketing background I have, putting quotes around it means those words have to be one after the other. But this could now be, is it safe to use Cash App versus is Cash App safe? So that would now encompass both of those terms. Venmo being a one-word thing makes it simpler enough to do that. And again, these would be words where these could be in any combination of these terms. But if it's got Venmo bank account, I feel pretty good that that's a good measure on people at that phase of linking their Venmo bank account. And again, you can scroll down to the bottom to kind of get a read on that yellow one if it's enough volume for it, as to kind of what are the related queries, like how does Venmo work for the rising terms, and you can toggle over to the top terms there to get an understanding of kind of, now I'm curious on the search volume of one of these terms. So you begin with the head term, you dive deeper, you find deeper, you dive deeper still, and then you can kind of get a read on that thing that you're trying to not just guess on Twitter at, but you're actually now trying to use a tool to measure, is that going up or is that going down? And how is the rate of that up or down compared to someone that they're fighting for market share for?
So it's really interesting to see all of the ways you can structure these search terms. You mentioned adding things together with the plus sign, subtracting things like the word stock after a search to eliminate any searches for the stock instead of the service. You mentioned putting things in quotes to make sure that words have to appear in a certain order. Are there any other tips and tricks that you can give us for structuring these relevant search terms to make sure our searches are clean and apples to apples?
As far as actually structuring these things, I think it's just you want to go through there and put yourself in the mind of somebody who is, when you first were signing up for Venmo, when you first were signing up for Cash App, what were you doing? What were you searching? Try to, when you're doing your own searches, catch yourself. How are you searching for something? Am I searching for, again, one for me in the e-commerce, again, a lot of it's my job. I also invest in there a lot is the word coupon code or promo code. So I do like Wayfair code versus I'll do Etsy in the word code. Knowing that if it's got the word code in there, it's either got the word promotion or promo or the word coupon, but I feel pretty good if it says Etsy code. I feel pretty good that that's a good measure of those people that get to that point in the checkout process that says, do you have a code? And like, oh crap, let me go search on Google for that. That now I'm measuring people at a distinct point in their buying journey. And again, I want to measure it over time. So I want to see how that's changing. I want to see how it's comparing. And now I have a data point that other investors don't have.
Yeah, so literally being able to use the words Etsy coupon code to understand how many people are using Etsy at any given moment instead of waiting for earnings for that report to tell you, correct? I'm just making sure I'm understanding.
No, I'm glad you're restating it because I can be a little long-winded in my answers there. But yeah, that's exactly.
No, that's great.
That's the main point. I'd love people to kind of just turn their brain onto and consider that and let me know if you find something.
Good to remember that there's always this added context of why are people searching for this term. So, when we're talking about adoption of new and advanced technologies, let's talk about Tesla a little bit just because people are very interested in that as the product, as a set of products, and as a stock. Yeah. When Tesla made this parabolic climb, one thing that people forget is that's on the back of really great earnings and really strong performance and really strong technical innovation. So can you walk us through a little bit like how can we search for Tesla and make sure we take out all of the noise of the stock going up and see like, hey, are more people buying Tesla cars today than they were 2 years ago? Are people buying more electric vehicles than they were 2 years ago?
So I have a Chevy Volt, so you can rag on me all you want. It's a pretty smart practical thought here for living in Boston. But so I can charge it up when I need to, and I can not when I don't. But I know to get like a charge point or the basic one, you need to have I don't know the number, but it's JR to some odd number of the adapter. So I was looking at that specific adapter that changes a Tesla port into the one that you could read. And is that a way to measure of how much Tesla owners will have that as one idea? They're always supply constrained at Tesla. So they're always hitting the cap of we make a car. How quickly can we literally, if it's Elon sleeping on the ground or not, how quickly can we get that car to somebody? So it's really, they're trying to get cars out at the rate at which they make them. But I'm hoping that the excess demand of people wanting one, that I'll have to wait 3 months for it, that will spill over into the used car market. So I want to see, here was Tesla used in red and Tesla red coming up. And now it's kind of lockstep a bit with these other ones. Yeah. So now, as you can see here, the used Audi in blue, used Tesla, I tried to pick the Tesla red, used BMW yellow, used Acura in green, used Mercedes in purple. So going back 5 years ago, you can see where Tesla at that point was. You can see it climbing the ranks over the last 3 or 4 years. I think it's one way to get a read on the actual consumer demand for the vehicle.
I first met Nolan through an investing community called Dumb Money, which is headed up by Chris Camillo, the author of Laughing at Wall Street, as well as Dave Hansen and Jordan McLean. That community is filled with awesome people who freely share great research that has made me some serious money. I'll link an invite to the Dumb Money Discord in the description below. While that community mainly focuses on spotting social trends over a quarter or two, Nolan and I connected because we both focus on the 5 to 10 year outlook. I think Google Trends really shines for spotting these types of adoption trends early and finding long-term winners. You can see literally hundreds of examples on this on dozens of ARK Invest's biggest holdings over at Nolan Antonucci's Twitter, which I'll link in the description below as well. So a big thanks to him and everyone else who's connecting with me on Twitter and sharing great research like this. And to my patrons on Patreon, my channel members right here on YouTube, and the almost 4,000 members in my own Discord community, all of which are constantly giving me great feedback and fresh investment ideas for the channel. Seriously, this channel wouldn't exist without you. No pun intended. Until next time, this is ticker symbol U. My name is Alex, reminding you that the best investment you can make is in you.